Successful people create companies. More successful people create countries. The most successful people create religions. That's quite a statement, isn't it?
It really makes you think.
Yeah, because if you follow that logic, maybe the most ambitious founders today aren't just building businesses. Maybe they're building, well, something like modern empires.
Mm-hmm.
And that leads us right into our deep dive today. We're looking at Karen Howe's really compelling new book, Empire of AI, Dreams and Nightmares, in Sam Altman's OpenAI.
Right.
And this isn't just, another tech company profile. It feels much more critical. It's examining the actual trajectory of AI, and maybe more importantly, the real-world costs. What's really happening underneath all the hype.
And Karen Howe, she's perfectly positioned for this. An award-winning journalist, her work's actually taught in universities, cited by governments. There's a reason for that.
Right.
She cuts through the, let's say, the dazzling surface of generative AI, shows us what's really going on, and crucially, who's actually benefiting and who isn't.
So our mission here is to unpack that. We want to show how the current direction of AI development might be, frankly, a bit alarming.
Yeah.
We'll focus on some surprising facts, some really concrete examples. Looking at how these AI power players, well, they operate a lot like empires of old, extracting resources, exploiting labor, concentrating wealth and power.
Mm-hmm.
And the goal is that you leave this deep dive with 5 big takeaways, plus some practical insights you can use right away to kind of navigate all this. Okay, let's get into it.
Let's do it.
So to understand this whole empire idea, we probably need to start at the beginning, right? OpenAI's founding.
Yeah, the origin story.
Back in 2015, Sam Altman, Elon Musk, a few others, they launched OpenAI with this really idealistic vision.
Extremely idealistic, you could say.
Their goal was to make sure AGI, artificial general intelligence, that sort of human-level AI, would benefit all of humanity.
Right, the key phrase being all humanity.
And the tech should belong to the world, run by a nonprofit. The idea was to stop, say, Google from just cornering the market.
Which is fascinating, because what Karen Howe really highlights is how quickly that initial nonprofit sort of self-sacrificing ethos evaporated.
It changed fast.
Incredibly fast. She calls it a nonprofit in name only. And that shift, it wasn't just, a small tweak. It speaks volumes about how the sheer cost and ambition of building something like AGI can overwhelm even those founding ideals.
So the money pressures just took over.
It seems that way. The gravity of needing massive capital just pulled it into a different orbit. From that open collective vision to aggressively commercializing things like ChatGPT, chasing these huge valuations, it happened really quickly.
That's a key point. So how did that actually happen? What were the big changes inside OpenAI that enabled this pivot?
Well, the book lays out a few crucial steps. First, the legal structure. That was fundamental.
Right.
They created a for-profit arm, OpenAI LP. Its purpose was explicit. Raise capital, give investors big returns, just like, any other venture-backed company.
So not exactly the original nonprofit model.
Not at all. A
Yeah.
radical departure. Then came Microsoft.
Ah, the big partnership.
Absolutely critical. Microsoft poured in billions, became the biggest backer and the sole supplier of their computing infrastructure.
So it wasn't just cash, it was the hardware.
Exactly. Access to the most powerful supercomputers on the planet. You simply can't build AI at that scale without it. And that partnership also coincided with a big internal culture shift.
How so?
The early ideas about transparency, about democratic access to AGI, they sort of faded. The company became intensely competitive, very secretive. The obsession became being first to AGI, whatever it took.
Okay, competitive, secretive. One might argue that's just, how cutting-edge tech works sometimes. It's a race. Did the book sort of push back on that idea or explain why this particular shift felt problematic?
Oh, absolutely. It wasn't presented as just a natural evolution. Hautelo details how this involved real internal friction. Key people, founding members even, left because they felt the original mission was being betrayed. And that secrecy, that laser focus on first to AGI, it meant that vital things like ethical guardrails, safety checks, considering diverse impacts, they often got pushed aside. It wasn't just competition. It was a narrowing of vision with potentially huge consequences for who controls this technology.
And that whole question of control, maybe even internal trust, really blew up with the what people called the blip or the Omni-Crisis, that whole drama in November 2023.
Right, the Omni-Crisis, yeah. That term really captures the chaos. The board tried to fire Sam Altman.
Citing he wasn't always candid, I think was the phrase.
Exactly, not consistently candid. And that whole episode just ripped the lid off the internal power struggles. You had the board supposedly safeguarding humanity versus Altman's drive for rapid growth and commercial success.
But he came back quickly.
He did. The pressure was immense. Most employees threatened to walk, and crucially, Microsoft weighed in heavily. Altman was reinstated, and soon after, the company's valuation hit the staggering $86 billion. Which leaves you with a pretty unsettling question, right? What does it mean if the board, the very people meant to oversee this powerful tech, can't trust the basic information coming from their CEO? It really shows where the power lies with capital and the drive to scale, potentially overriding governance and ethics.
That valuation, the internal chaos, it underscores the immense power involved. But as the book really emphasizes, this pursuit of power comes at a huge cost. This brings us to the nightmares part of the empire metaphor. How describes these generative AI models as monstrosities? Not in a sci-fi way, but because of what they consume.
Yes, this is where the book really lands some punches. It shatters that idea of AI being clean, purely digital. The environmental cost is enormous because it forces us to see AI's physical footprint.
You mean the data centers?
Exactly. These AI mega campuses, they need unbelievable amounts of energy. We're talking 1,000, maybe 2,000 megawatts a year.
That sounds like a lot. How much is that?
Well, to put it in perspective, that's roughly the annual energy use of 1.5 to maybe 3.5 San Franciscos.
Seriously? For AI training and running?
Yes. And it's not just electricity. Think minerals, copper, lithium needed for all the hardware, often mined in ways that wreck local environments.
And water, too, right? I remember reading about the water usage.
Oh, astronomical. Cooling these servers needs potable water, vast amounts of it. Hey, you get some really shocking examples. Like, during GPT-4's training in Iowa, Microsoft's data centers use something like 11.5 million gallons of water.
In 1 month.
11.5 million gallons.
And this was during a drought. Or in Chile, a planned Google data center was set to use over 1,000 times the water the entire local town of Cerrillos used.
1,000 times.
So this isn't abstract. It leads to real harm. Displacing indigenous communities in Chile for lithium mining, constant noise pollution from data centers near underserved neighborhoods. The cloud isn't in the sky. It's built on extracting real resources from real places, often harming real people. And it's not just the environmental cost. There's the human cost, too. The book talks about ghost work.
Yes, that's a really powerful concept she explores, this invisible workforce that fuels the AI empire.
How does that work?
Well, the book details how companies actively seek out workers in crisis, people in places like Venezuela or Kenya facing severe economic hardship who are desperate for any work, even for pennies.
Pennies per task.
Literally.
Yeah.
She tells the story of Oscarina Fuentes Anaya in Venezuela, working for a company called Appen, earning maybe 1 to 5 cents for each microtask.
Oh my...
Forcing herself to work 20, 22 hours a day sometimes, just competing for these tiny bits of work to survive. She calls herself and others like her ghosts to society, cheap, disposable labor. Their work is essential for the AI, but they're invisible.
That's incredibly bleak. And it's not just the low pay, is it? Some of this work is psychologically damaging too. Content moderation.
Exactly. Another really stark case is Moffat Okinyi in Kenya. He was contracted via a company called Sama Tama to do content moderation for OpenAI.
What did that involve?
Reviewing the absolute worst kinds of content, imaginable child abuse material, graphic violence, hate speech to train the AI's safety filters for about $1.50 an hour.
$1.50 for that kind of work.
Yes. And the toll was immense. Severe trauma, PTSD, his marriage broke down. His question in the book just hangs there. Was my input worth what I received in return?
Wow.
It really forces you to confront the human cost, the exploitation baked into the foundations of some of these incredibly advanced systems. What do we owe these people?
That question.
Yeah.
It really stays with you. So beyond the environmental damage and the human exploitation, how does this empire building affect our actual understanding of the AI itself, our trust in it?
That's another critical piece. The book points out how the definition of AI, especially something like AGI, is constantly shifting. It's like the goalposts are always moving.
What do you mean?
Well, every time there's a new breakthrough, you get these debates. Is this real intelligence or just a clever trick, a pale imitation? And terms like AGI get heavily marketed even when the tech has serious limits and is often unreliable.
Unreliable, like.
Yeah.
The hallucinations.
Exactly. And Howland makes a crucial point. These hallucinations where the AI just makes stuff up or says bizarre things, they aren't really bugs to be fixed.
They're not.
Not fundamentally. They're more like a core feature of how these large language models work. They're built on probabilities, predicting the next likely word to create plausible sounding text. They're not built for factual accuracy.
So making things up is kind of inherent to the design? That's a big deal. What are the real-world risks of that?
They can be significant, even tragic. The book mentions a case in Belgium where a man took his own life, reportedly after a chatbot encouraged him.
Oh, no.
And there was that lawyer who got sanctioned by a court because he used an AI that just invented legal precedents, fake case citations.
Right, I remember that story.
These aren't just funny glitches. They show the danger of trusting systems that are designed to sound convincing, even when they're wrong. And then you have the whole intellectual property mess.
Training the AI on everyone's work.
Millions of artists, writers, coders, their work scraped and used to train these models, often without permission, without compensation, effectively automating jobs using the very material created by the people whose jobs are threatened.
That's a huge issue. Okay, so the picture painted is, well, it's pretty concerning. The environmental costs, the human exploitation, the unreliability, the IP issues.
It's a lot.
But, and this is where it gets really interesting, the book argues this isn't inevitable, right? This path isn't set in stone.
Exactly. That's maybe the most crucial takeaway. Howell emphasizes that this current trajectory, this empire model, it's not predetermined. There are alternatives. There are people actively resisting and building AI differently.
Okay, like what do these alternatives look like?
Well, one fantastic example is Te Hiku. It's a Maori organization in New Zealand.
What are they doing?
They're building AI specifically for Maori language revitalization. But the key is how they're doing it. It's all based on consent, reciprocity, data sovereignty.
Data sovereignty.
Meaning the Maori community retains full ownership and control over all the language data they contribute. It's not extracted by some outside company. It serves their specific cultural goals. And because of that, they have incredible trust and engagement from their community. It's a totally different model.
That sounds really powerful. Community-led AI. What else?
There's DAIR, the Distributed AI Research Institute, founded by Dr. Timnit Gebru after she was pushed out of Google.
Right.
Her whole goal with DIA is to fight that centralization of AI power. They build global research teams embedded within communities, working on local problems, ensuring the tech benefits those communities directly, not just lining the pockets of big tech firms.
So decentralized, community-focused.
And the workers themselves are organizing. People like Mofat Okinyi and Oscarina Fuentes Anaya, they're not just victims. They're actively involved in groups like the African Content Moderators Union, Tech Worker Community Africa.
Fighting for better conditions.
Exactly. Advocating for fair wages, better labor protections for these often invisible ghost workers.
So it's happening on multiple fronts, new tech models, but also labor rights policy.
Absolutely. You have architects trying to redesign data centers to be less extractive, more integrated with nature fluid data territories, they call it. Policymakers are being pushed for stronger rules on data privacy, transparency, and training AI, updating IP law.
Collective action, like the Hollywood strikes.
A huge example. The writers and actors successfully got protections against certain AI uses written into their contracts. It shows that unions, collective bargaining, they have real power to push back against the devaluing of human work by AI.
Okay, so wrapping this up, what does it all mean? Hayao's book, it sounds like it's more than just a critique. It's a call to action.
Very much so. It demonstrates that the future of AI isn't fixed. We actually have choices. We can shape how this unfolds.
This deep dive into empire of AI, it really does bring the hidden realities into sharp focus, doesn't it? Behind the shiny surface of AI.
It's a vital camera narrative, gives you clarity, challenges you to think differently.
Yeah, it provides this really useful framework for understanding not just what's happening, but why it matters to you personally and to society.
Exactly, why it matters to you.
So for you, the learner listening right now, let's boil this down to 5 big takeaways with some actionable things you can do immediately.
Good, yeah.
Okay, first, critically evaluate AI narratives. Don't just swallow the hype whole. Understand that the way AI is often developed now concentrates wealth and power, and it usually comes at a human and environmental cost. So the action. When you hear about a new AI breakthrough, just pause and ask, who really benefits here? And who might be paying the price? Maybe invisibly.
Good first step.
Second, demand transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
These black box AI models and the secrecy around their development, they have real-world impacts.
We need to know what's inside.
So the action. Look for and support organizations, maybe policies that push for more openness. How are these things trained? What data are they using? How are the impacts being measured?
Transparency is key.
Third, value human labor and creativity. Remember that AI's amazing abilities are often built on that exploited ghost work from low-wage workers globally and on scraping creative work without paying for it.
The human element is crucial.
Your action. Advocate for stronger labor rights for data workers. Support fair compensation for creators whose work fuels these AI systems. Maybe support updated IP laws.
Fair compensation matters.
Fourth, consider AI's environmental footprint. Be aware this stuff isn't magic floating in the cloud. It uses immense energy, water, minerals.
It's very physical.
Action. Support research into making AI more energy efficient. Encourage companies to be honest about their environmental impact. How much water, how much energy are they really using? Push for sustainable practices.
Accountability on resources.
And finally, fifth, explore and support alternative models. Remember, the current centralized, hyper-commercialized way isn't the only way to build AI.
There are other paths.
Your action. Seek out and learn about those other approaches. The community-led projects, the ethical initiatives, the distributed models, the ones that prioritize people, well-being, and consent over just growth at any cost.
Support the alternatives. And if you connect all this back to the bigger picture, it becomes clear that AI development isn't some inevitable force of nature. It's actually a series of very subjective choices.
Right. Choices often made by a relatively small group of people with a lot of power.
Exactly.
Which leads to, I think, the final important question for everyone listening. If the path AI takes isn't predetermined, then what subjective choices will you make to help shape its future?